Hello and welcome to another edition of Pulp Picks. My name is Patrick.
I'm Fritz.
And we're here to give you this week's reading recommendations on New Comic Book Day. And I thought for a second there we did all Marvel, but no, I picked a
I was
DC
going to
book.
say, you
Yeah, so...
you broke it. You broke the chain.
I did. But let's get right to it. And Fritz, what do you have? A new title.
Yeah, so my pick this week is Exceptional X-Men, the latest of the current From the Ashes roll that Marvel's been doing for the X-Men books.
Yes.
So this is like kind of like when they originally announced the From the Ashes era, there were three main titles that they announced. You got X-Men, you got Uncanny X-Men, and then now finally Exceptional X-Men. Whereas the other two books are a lot about like following kind of like more established characters. This one has a couple of those, but then it's also about introducing like newer mutants, like kind of really delving into what does it mean to be a new mutant now in the like post-Krakoan era. It's something similar that like NYX has kind of been dealing with, where it's just like, what's it like for these younger generations to like have like this moment after all this has gone down.
Yeah.
But yeah, the main thrust of this first issue is Kitty Pryde, who, if you have been reading the Krakoan era stuff, you know, went through a bunch of different stuff. She was a pirate captain.
Yeah.
She was like a murder ninja for a bit. Like,
Yeah.
she had like a real like rocky time of it. And here, like after all that, she's finally trying to be like, what if I just don't do any of that superhero stuff for a bit and just like try and like have a normal life? Like,
yeah, kind of, but she's also kind of in denial.
yeah,
right?
but that's the thing, though.
She's
It's
not
just like
wanting to address anything head on.
Yeah, her line had this like normal life is more about like, I just can't cope with anything I've had to deal with the last couple of years, and frankly my whole life. So I'd like maybe trying to have a life like this will like make it easier. And obviously being a mutant and an X-Men doesn't really work out that way.
Right, yeah. Although she does talk about how because of the way that she's a mutant, she can pass.
Yeah.
And there's an interesting scene with that.
Yeah, and that's always been a big thing with a lot of the mutant stuff, and it also always comes up in conversation about like, oh, like Xavier seemed to know about like the Morlocks all this time, but he just kind of like let them live in the sewer because like, they're gross little mutant people. Like, I can't have them on my superhero team to appeal to the normies. Like,
yeah, which is funny because he had like Kurt and other people, but yeah,
but like they deal with that. A good chunk of this issue is her rescuing one of the new mutants, not capital N capital M new mutants, but one of the newer ones, Bronze here, from an altercation at a concert.
Yes, K-pop.
Yeah. A very thinly veiled reference to a certain band that if you know anything about K-pop, you can probably figure it out real quick. But yeah, like, just kind of, and we don't get to like delve too much into like Bronze in this issue, but what we do get, like, I instantly really enjoy her because she's got like a lot of energy, but she's also like, doesn't really seem interested in like the whole mutant scene at all. Like, she's kind of like, oh, I guess this is my life now. I'm not like super into that.
Yeah, and so as I was reading it, I was kind of going back to, like Kitty's early appearances and some other mutants as they were discovered, and some of their early appearances and finding out that they were mutants and struggling with that. And I was like, yeah, this is reminiscent of those kinds of books.
Yeah, and we get a bit of like her
one in particular.
Yeah, and we get like a little bit of her home life that's kind of like setting up some stuff there.
Yeah,
and there's part of a conversation she has with a family member there that you get to see a little bit of that elsewhere in here. Is just like people don't really know what to like think about mutants at this point because like coming off the Krakoan era, like you've got the whole speech that it comes up a couple times in here from Magneto in that first issue of House of X, where it's just like, you have new gods now. And like, obviously now that like Krakoa has fallen, like, how do you...
Doesn't read well.
Yeah, like, well, our gods are now just like living next door. So what, like, how are we supposed to feel about that kind of deal?
Right, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's interesting. And the way that this is setting up for this team, and they kind of make a reference to it when Kitty's kind of flipping through different social media feeds, and she sees Scott and Magic and whatever, and they're, there's somebody who's live streaming them leaving a scene or whatever. You get the vibe that this team is going to be considered, Scott's kind of doing what Scott does. He wants to be out there in front of the world, showing them that mutants can do things. that they're not just destructive or whatever Scott's team is going to try to do in Alaska. This book is setting up a totally different tone, I think.
Yeah, like this is very much. I think I sent an article to some people yesterday that I saw that I think really does a good job of kind of like illustrating like what this era is kind of going for. Where it's like, because a lot of people, they'll bring up that like, oh, this feels more like a return to like a lot of the kind of more like 90s like classic X-Men era kind of stuff.
Funny how the 90s are coming back around again. Yeah.
And like, but like the way they kind of like framed it though is more of a like, it's a lot of these characters after having had to deal with like the last several years of like what's happened. Like this is them trying to like metatextually find like kind of like their like safe place. Like this is like they're treading familiar ground because like they need that after like, oh, we had this whole country and we lost it. Like we like all the stuff that we had is gone now. And that's kind of like what's going on here with Kitty is like she's not trying to do that. She's like trying to like issue all of that, trying to find like a different path, but that's still not really working for her.
Yeah.
And seeing how that's going to intersect with these characters who have like no connection to any of this, like how they can like help each other in that fashion. Also, we haven't talked about, despite the fact she's like right there on the cover, like Emma, like she's not in here a whole lot, but when she is here, she's like great. Yeah, like, and like it'll be interesting to see like how she like approaches all this, because like there's this like bit where she's like basically going through her mental Rolodex of like, who do I want to like make their life like more problematic? And,
and so as I was reading that, I was wondering like, is she gently nudging up against those people's thoughts? Because it kind of felt like maybe she was doing that just a little bit as kind of a way to, like you're saying, thumb through kind of a Rolodex. It was interesting. I really enjoyed the art. I thought the art was very good. It's totally like X-Men house style, but it is very good.
Because if you remember, like we used to have, so it's Carmen Carrero on art. They did art on one of the Captain America titles the last couple of years, and we talked about that a lot on there. And like they're still killing it on this. Like this is one of those books where I was almost like, one of the big draws for me was like I really enjoy Eve Ewing as a writer. Like her recent Black Panther run was a good one for me, and obviously Carnero on art is always a hit. So those two doing an X-Men book was just like, well, I've got to check it out, and I'm very happy I did.
Yeah. That's going to be interesting to see where this goes. It's so the basic building blocks of the team are, you've got Emma, who ran a team of teenagers. Yeah.
Arguably not well. Twice, actually.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Another one went almost 3 times if you count the Academy X kids.
Right, yeah, for sure. So, which again was kind of based on her. But, the Hellions, a lot of them ended up dead, right?
Yeah, most of them.
So you've got somebody who's got this kind of identity as leading a young group of emerging mutants, kind of teaching them. You've got Kitty, who went through an experience like that. She was kind of the first kid brought into the X-Men.
And like her and Emma obviously have their whole history together, going from like very much antagonists to each other to like kind of like we get each other, like we're like we understand each other kind of thing now.
Well, and I know that a lot of people who have been longtime fans of Kitty really struggled with the transitions that she went through during the Krakoan era, and it was, she had a totally different experience with Krakoa than anybody else, because for a long time she was unable to even step foot on Krakoa. So it's going to be really interesting. And then we're going to have a bunch of new characters that are going to be really fun. And Bronze was fun. Excellent. Or exceptional.
Yes, exceptional. But speaking of really good first issues with incredible writers and artists.
I went with Plastic No More, the new Plastic Man Black Label. So this, the DC Black Label is kind of, it's insulated from mainline continuity.
It's its own little like adjacent thing.
Yeah, so they can tell whatever kind of stories they want to, mess around with all the toys in the toy box without, screwing up continuity for any of you that are worried about, Plastic Man dying in mainline continuity.
But spoiler alert, Plastic Man is dying in this.
Yeah, so shocking. Not that you would have gotten that from the title or the fact that he's melting on a sundial on the cover here, but so I'd been saying for quite a while that I really wanted a Plastic Man book, and that I thought that Black Label would be a good place for it because you could do something edgier with him. And then when I saw that Christopher Cantwell, who, I was thinking about it this morning, the things that I really liked, Christopher Cantwell did one of the best recent runs on Iron Man.
Oh, absolutely.
Anybody. Just blew it out of the water. And when I saw that that run was ending, I was crushed. And, the next series was fine, but that was great. I mean, it was so good. He even got the rocket skates in there, and in a way that it wasn't corny.
Yeah.
So I was super excited for this book. And when I flipped through, just to take a look at the art on Monday when I was checking the books in, I was very excited because it looks like something that is going to fit Plastic Man's capabilities and personality really well.
Well, one of the things I love because there's two different artists on the book. There's someone handling kind of like the more like Plastic Man centric bits, but then they've got another guy for like when he's hanging out with the Justice League, and it's got this the more like kind of like clean, shiny like superhero vibe to it. And then the parts where it's just Plastic Man, there's like it's got like a bit like a rougher edge to it.
Yeah. The Justice League stuff kind of reminds me of like a Saturday morning cartoon.
Yeah.
Where, and they're only kind of looking at things on a very surface level, kind of like, we're the Justice League, everything is great.
Oh, Plastic Man, you kill us.
Yeah. Like, I'm dying. You're so funny.
Yeah.
And that's literally kind of what he's dealing with here, right? And, but you also get a really quick kind of introduction to him as a character, kind of his path, and how he ends up with the Justice League and as a superhero, and it holds to that kind of classic Plastic Man story.
I love the line he has at one point where it's just like, since I make such a bad criminal, maybe I'll make a halfway decent superhero. Like it's like I love kind of like, and that's something I'm curious that they might play with the Justice League stuff. Is like a lot of this book is just like, Plastic Man, like he's kind of like down on himself for like various reasons, and part of you wonders like how much of like the Justice League stuff is like, is this how it really is, or this is just like how he imagines that part of his life?
Right. Yeah. And it's Plastic Man's an interesting character, right? Because he comes from a different publisher from the 40s. He's Patrick O'Brien, kind of this stereotypical Irish portrayal of somebody from the 40s who is kind of more of a gray area good guy, right? So, and I think we when I see all these previews coming out, Police Comics #1 is it Police Comics #1?
I think so.
Yeah, is his first appearance, and we just recently
we
had
got
a facsimile
copies of that. Yeah.
So you can check out his actual first appearance if you want, because DC acquired that publisher a long time ago, and so it's. Yes, he does something unselfish, and of course that's going to blow up in his face, and it's causing his demise. Which I think Plastic Man would be able to come to grips with in his own
like his
smart alecky kind of way. Like
he seems less concerned because like he's less concerned about like what's happening to him and like the potential of just like, oh, what this means for like someone else.
Right,
like,
and there's the twist, right? There's the hook that makes this really interesting, because we're going to see this guy who was pretty self-serving his entire life. He was only being selfless and a hero because that's kind of what was thrust upon him, and it was the path of least resistance. So what's he going to do now that he's on the clock? His time is running out. Yeah, literally. He's melting on the clock. His time is running out. And there's somebody who he actually cares for, although he has done a terrible job of doing anything for this person or being there for this person. And now he's got to figure out what can be done and to what lengths will he go. And it appears at the end of this that the lengths could be terrifying.
Yeah, like there's you saw like, so we could fix this. It's very potential that it would just, the thing that could fix you would also just still kill you anyway. So it's just like let's go for it. It's just
Right,
like,
yeah.
oh, okay. Then.
Well, and kill how many others? So it's really interesting, but he doesn't approach it in a sinister way. He's very much happy-go-lucky. Like, oh, that sounds great. Let's do that.
Yeah, he's very much like he's being glass half full about this whole thing.
Yeah, and I don't know if he's being naive or if he's in denial or what it is, but I'm very interested to see where it's going to go because knowing Christopher Cantwell and the way that he writes stories, this is not going to be just a superficial telling of this story. It's going to be really good. I'm super excited to keep reading it.
Yeah. But hey, speaking of stories about people with stretchy powers being super traumatized by...
Ooh, that's a great segue.
Great writers and artists. We've got Ultimates issue 4. We're now 4 for 4, I believe, on this one.
Well, because it's amazing.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. The whole Ultimate line has been so good. Ultimates in particular has really surprised me. And, Ultimates in the original Ultimate universe gave me kind of an icky feeling.
And, to be fair, there was definitely, I think that was part of the point with that
I think that's what they were going for. Absolutely.
Yeah.
This one is more kind of a classic comic book hero kind of story.
There's kind of a different icky feeling where it's just because part of the whole thing with the original Ultimates line is they were, or with the original Ultimates team, is they were kind of they were superheroes, but they were also kind of not always the best people.
Right, yeah, it was kind of that whole Watchmen, later the Squadron Supreme, the Dark Squadron Supreme. If you had ultimate power, it would make you not a great person.
Yeah, whereas this is just there's an icky feeling, but it's more of people who are actually trying to be good and do good, and they're just stuck in this really awful world.
Yeah. And they're traumatized.
Yes, yeah. So so
oh God, we've got a real theme
trauma week.
Here.
Yeah. So this issue follows Doom, where if you haven't been following the Ultimate books, the Doom in this universe is actually this universe's Reed Richard, who was tortured and experimented on by the Maker, who was the Reed of the original Ultimate universe. Who, and I don't think they'd specified it before now, but in the preamble in this issue, they specify Doom doesn't know that the Maker is also a Reed.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really come up in this issue, but that now sets up oh, that's a ticking time bomb for when that information gets to him, when he finds out. Especially
as we learn in this issue, they have a relationship with each other, and that added in with the fact that he's hidden this from Ultimate Universe Reed.
So basically this issue is structured. It's kind of 4 different. You see four different points in the timeline, kind of showing how Doom became the way he is. We get what happened before the test flight. We get what happened during and after the test flight. We get him attempting to use the time case that they have to try and fix this stuff. Spoiler, it doesn't really work.
No.
And then the aftermath of that, him have a conversation with Tony about hey man, you've just kind of been in here doing stuff. Well, we've been out there trying to do the whole thing that we set up this the Ultimates to be. What's that about? It's just but have you seen my mice?
Yeah. Well, speaking of which, nod to the cover. This cover is great, and it tells you so much about what's going on in this issue. It was a really great cover week too. We can touch on that when we wrap up. This, once you realize the origin of this Doom, and it walks you through all the pain and tragedy, and then you figure out how the Doom mantle came to be, it's... if you have any scrap of empathy in it at all, it is heartbreaking.
Well, there's a bit near the end where Tony's just hey man, I'm suffering, and Doom's just no, you have no concept of what suffering is. It's
don't start with me, kid.
Yeah, it's but I do, as much as this issue is kind of leans into there's definitely some questions about how far Doom's willing to go. There's also points though where it's just you don't know what suffering is. And God, I hope you never do.
Yeah.
He's still
there's still a sliver of Reed in there.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I love, because it's the whole issue is it's bar, showing the different ones and how they'll bleed together into each other, be it sound effects or dialogue exchanges. Kind of it very similar to how more in Watchmen would use like certain like word balloon to like in one panel to set up something completely different in a different panel. Like there's a lot of that in here. Phil Noda's also like guest artist on this issue, and he like absolutely kills it. Yeah, like it, and just the way there's so much just like messed up about like how like certain like things about certain characters' powers and how they're like addressed to like what happened to them. Like why aren't they around? Like it's just like it gets it's like this is like I don't know if it's necessarily as dark as last issue, but like it's dark on like a more like personal to like Reed and Doom. Like you really just see like how everything just falls apart, but like you also get to see like how it was before that, how when it was like the good times, when he was meeting everyone and like everything was on the upswing. Yeah.
And it does kind of do that that Watchmen kind of like having this kind of ability would change you as a person. Like, you know, it sets you apart from other people in society, and that isn't just a positive thing. So it kind of takes the veneer off of the whole superhero genre and says like, look, these super intelligence or superpowers, like this kind of stuff it'd be tough to be a good person with that. But at the same time, there's still kind of that moral compass center to Reed still there, kind of tucked away and hidden. So we're going to see which the struggle is going to be between that and wanting what he wants. And how far is he willing to go to see if he's got that kind of ability. It's going to be really good.
It's like, we can't say enough, like all the Ultimate books have just been fantastic. And
just so
obviously no exception here.
All right, so I alluded to covers. What, were there any covers that stood out or any other titles that stood out?
So if we're talking for like other books that came out this week that were really good, final issue of a couple things like Dawn Runner over Dark Wars and The Boy Wonder over at DC. Both those are really good. Super excited. The team that's been doing Dawn Runner, they're going to be having Ram V and I'm blanking the artist's name. I feel bad now, but like they're going to be doing a New Gods book at DC coming out in December.
What?
Yeah.
Very cool.
I'm beyond excited for that. Like that's super exciting. Otherwise, new issue of Thor this week was super good.
I haven't gotten to it yet, but I'm excited for it.
Which, if we're talking like covers, has an amazing Alex Ross cover, as the series has had this whole time. But this one has probably one of the coolest depictions of Asgard on it. Otherwise, as you can see, we have a bunch of awesome variant covers, including Godzilla is like the
Marvel theme this
for September.
For the next month here.
And there's some really good ones here. We've got a bunch more coming up that I love. There's one. There's going to be an Avengers variant cover coming up where Cap throws his shield into Godzilla's mouth. It's like, you're not getting that shield back. Like that's not coming back.
I'm not a huge Spider-Boy guy, but that Spider-Boy cover is maybe my favorite.
That Spider-Boy cover is a really good one.
It's super cool. So Mark Waid and Dan Mora still doing exceptionally well on Absolute Power. Dan Mora might be my favorite comic book artist right now. I mean, so good.
If you had to like ascribe like what who's the artist of an era, like he's like already kind of set himself up as like the artist of like the 2020s.
It looks so effortless. Just so good.
Like the fact that like my Twitter feed will be half the time someone being like, "Oh my God, Dan Moore finally drew my favorite character. I'm so happy to see them get drawn by him."
So Big Barda this issue.
Yes, actually,
so exceptionally well.
If we're talking favorite characters getting drawn by one of your favorite artists, that's a real good one right there.
And the cover on that one is just, again, like doing something that's not easy and making it look effortless. It's you kind of miss it at a glance, but if you take a good look at that cover, it's really, really good. But Absolute Power was good. Scarlet remains exceptional. The mission so far has been tough physically. Now it's gotten tough emotionally.
There's some hard choices look like they might have to get made in that next issue.
Yes, and a surprise. We find out who they're vying against in this issue, and everything's going to start coming together. And there's going to be a major character showing up in the next issue. It's going to get really good.
Yeah.
And what's in the box? Yeah. We find out what's in the box.
Yeah.
What are they going after?
Yeah, spoiler, it's probably not good for everyone.
Yeah, that's kind of what Scarlett narrates. Like, there's something about this guy having this thing, and this is either going to be helpful or really, really, really bad. So, yeah, excellent. Well, it's another big week. There were a handful of titles that didn't show up. Diamond, whenever there's a holiday that slows down shipping, they never get out in front of it. So that stuff's showing up later, but it's mostly just subscription stuff.
Yeah.
There was no Boom. I think there was only one Titan title from them. So very, very little stuff.
But so we got most of the stuff. All the DC and Marvel is here.
Yep, all the big stuff. We got 95% of what we typically get.
And we should have the rest of it in later today. Actually,
it was in Maple Grove or something yesterday. So it'll be here today, and it'll end up in your bag if that's a book that you're subscribed to. So I would think, so Jeff gets a lot of stuff from there. I would think by the time Jeff rolls in today, it'll all be in his bag. So anyway, the regular stuff. Be sure to like, follow, subscribe, leave comments. Stop into your local comic shop. Hopefully it's us. If it's not, support your local comic shop. Next week, we're going to have a really big announcement about something that we're doing coming up the very beginning of next month. We're going to have a surprise guest showing up, but it won't be a surprise after tomorrow or after next week, so I'll tell you who it is. But watch on social media for that coming up. And the other big thing is starting next Monday, we're going to be open again on Mondays. Because we've got so much traffic coming in and so much work that we need to do that we have to open that back up again. So to start with, we're going to have Jesse and Ryan. They're specifically our magic experts, although both of them are reading comics and that kind of thing. So we'll be able to help anybody with anything for the most part. I'll be in on Mondays too, but I'll be receiving all the comics so that on Wednesdays they're available to you. But noon to 5 on Mondays starting next week. So hopefully you're able to get in and read a bunch of comics yourself and let us know what you think about them. We will be back next week with another video, and until then, enjoy the reading.
Go dying.
They're really funny. The end of this is just like me off screen dying.